the way the next hour is going to go, we've got our guest speaker, our keynote, which is Amy Kaur. I'll introduce her in a moment. Then we're going to move into breakout sessions where I'm going to encourage everybody to have their cameras on. The breakout sessions will be small groups between students and alumni. We're going to have a separate group for the mentors. And then we're going to come back for a closing, and we're going to hear a little bit about SWE next. So any questions before I get going, before we all get going? Shouldn't be much. Okay, so to get started, I'd like to take a moment now and introduce our honored guest, Amy Kaur. I'm going to spotlight you, Amy, so we can all see you. Amy is an entrepreneurial civil engineer and strong community leader with the goal of inspiring more women to become engineers. As a co-founder of EngineeringGals, she has cultivated a global community of engineers focused on empowering ecosystems for women in engineering. As a first-generation American and college graduate, Amy strives to amplify underrepresented voices in STEM by hosting the Gals Chat podcast, live seminars, and providing valuable resources for students and professionals. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Happy International Women's Day. It's really amazing to be talking about, my topics today because I get to not just celebrate it online on social media, but I get to actually talk to you all today. So I'm really excited about that. I actually need to share my screen, and it's saying that my screen sharing is disabled. Are you able to enable that, Becca?
Yep,
Okay.
I fixed it. You should share.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I need to just. Okay, can you all see my screen? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for being here, everyone. I wanted to talk about, two important topics that are really close to my heart, things that I've struggled with myself as a civil engineer being in STEM, and that would be paving your path and community. So a little bit about myself. I am a civil engineer. I'm one of the co-founders of EngineeringGals, which is an online organization for women in engineering. I have my weekly podcast, which I interview other women in STEM and how they're thriving in their journey. And then for fun, I like to do some modeling and create some content online on social media. So I want to walk you through a quick tour of my path in STEM and engineering, and it pretty much started at Cal State Long Beach. I got my bachelor's in civil engineering there. I had my internship experience in water resources. And through that internship experience, I was able to kind of say that, okay, yes, I want a full-time career as a water resource engineer. And another really big part of my journey and something that's been close to my heart is EngineeringGals. And that's because when I was going to school, I didn't really find a lot of representation or people that look like me in my classes. And so I decided to create that world for myself online where women can be unapologetically themselves and not be judged for the way that they, look, their hobbies or personalities or interests, anything. And that can be seen as a strength. And you don't have to fit into a box just because you're in the STEM industry. So, fast forward now, we have mentorship, podcasts, webinars, and have community for one another. And, now that you know like a little bit about me, I kind of want to know a little bit more about you. I actually want to know, I know that everyone is part of, First Robotics, and you're going to be doing the competition in a few weeks in San Diego, but I really wanted to know long term, like, are you actually interested in a career in STEM or not? So you could say yes, no, maybe you're not sure, and that's completely fine. Because I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in your shoes at that time. But yeah, you can just put your answers in the chat box, and then that'll give me an idea of kind of where everyone is at. So some people are saying not sure. Yes. Ooh, mechanical engineering. Okay, it seems like a lot of people are sure for the most part. Love engineering. Okay, cool. Yeah, and some people aren't sure. Okay. Well, thanks for answering. That helps me get a better idea of, where everyone's at too. And if you are interested in a career in STEM, do you know which field you want to go to? I know some people said, oh, they love engineering, they're interested in mechanical. I'm curious to know if you know which field you want to go into. So you could just say yes, no, or you're not sure. Mechanical aviation engineering, that sounds like fun. Robotics or aerospace. Yeah, the aerospace industry is doing so many amazing things right now. Oh, currently majoring in electrical. User design, yep, UX, engineering, okay, and then automotive, and not sure. Okay. Well, thanks for answering that. That helps me get a better idea of where everyone is kind of at. And that brings me to our topic of today, which is paving your path. I think this is something that I struggled with a lot when I was thinking about, what do I want to do? So you might be struggling with that as well. It might seem like it's really, really stressful. Just graduating high school, getting to college, what major you're going to pick. It might seem like there's way too many decisions to make. And then also that there's not enough information, that you feel like you don't even know where to start. So I kind of wanted to frame this whole conversation about paving your path as something that you decide to do for yourself, one decision at a time. So it might not necessarily be something that like you just decide and stick to. Like I know some of you said like I want to get into robotics or mechanical engineering, and that's great. And maybe others don't know what you kind of don't know what you want to do yet. And and I think it's mainly just trying to figure out, well, how do I kind of know what are the things that enjoy and excite me? I think a lot of the times when we think about our path, it seems like, oh, what should I do? Quote unquote, what path should I take? Maybe this is a good career option, but it's not something that excites you. For me, I was undecided in my first year of university. I started off as a nursing major, and I really didn't know what I was doing as a nursing major. I soon realized that that's not what I wanted to do. And I was growing up, I was more into like sewing and creating arts and crafts and things like that. So I just picked nursing as a default. And then I had to kind of really think hard about, what are the things that I like to do? And then I can start kind of laying down one brick at a time of my path, like what path I want to take. So what are the questions that I asked myself? So some of the questions were like, okay, yeah, like what are my interests? What are my strengths? But when I asked myself this one question, which is, when have I been the most curious or excited to learn? And that was for me, brought back a really core memory. And that was a memory of when I would work on cars in with my dad in our garage. And I remember I was like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll hold the flashlight, I'll hold your tools, I'll pass you the tools. But then when I started looking at the car, I started realizing that I wanted to know what every part was doing. Like I wanted to know, how do you know which part doesn't work? How do you know which one to fix? And I was just amazed. And that kind of, memory just lit me up, and I felt so present, so excited, that I realized that, okay, even though I'm in nursing, actually want to do something that's a little bit more technical. And that's when I started thinking, okay, well, does that mean that I have to do something in mechanical engineering? Do I have to work on cars? No, not necessarily. I know a lot of you all are here doing robotics, and it could be something that you want to do long term or not. And that's 100% okay, because it could be just a stepping stone in figuring out what that is later on. And the other thing that I want to kind of touch on is should I choose a career based off of my strengths, or should I choose it based off of my interests? So for me, I felt like that was something that I was at a crossroads with, because I wasn't good at math. So I did really bad in math in high school. I didn't really pay attention, and I also just never really cared for it. Not until I decided that I wanted to be in engineering. So I kind of had to like really ask myself this really hard question of, should I not do engineering because I'm bad at math? Maybe what if I choose engineering and even though I like it, I'm not good at it because of math. And I decided that I wasn't going to let math be the reason why I don't follow my passion. So I went to lots and lots and lots of tutoring, and before I knew it, I was doing really well in math, and it was a skill that I had to learn. So I don't know, you might find yourself at a place in your career or something that you feel really excited to do, but you're not sure about, a certain skill that you have, and you might feel like, "Oh, I shouldn't do it because I'm not naturally good at it." I want you to kind of reframe that, mindset and say like, "Well, the important thing is that I'm passionate about this and I can learn the skills that I need to learn to get to where I need to go." And that's kind of what I did. And that's what I've trying to do like throughout my entire journey in STEM. So what are the resources that really helped me? I took some intro to STEM classes. I know that there's some in high school that you can take, and there's some in college as well. So I took an intro to civil engineering class because I didn't even know there's like 5 different focuses in civil engineering itself, that it was just even harder to decide. So I had decided I was going to be in tech, I was going to be in civil engineering, but then after that there's more focuses that I had to kind of navigate through. So then I highly recommend that. And then talking to a counselor. So when I decided that I wanted to be a civil engineer, I went and talked to my counselor, and I told him that I wanted to do an internship to get a better idea of what the day-to-day life of a civil engineer looks like, because going to school is completely different than, our day-to-day experience of doing the job in the STEM profession. So, and he sent me this job opportunity that he had just gotten, and I know for sure that I wouldn't have been able to get that internship without me actually walking into my advisor's office that day and asking, because I didn't know where to go to apply to jobs. I didn't know what website to go to. I didn't even know how to fix my resume. But my advisor helped me do that, so there's a lot of really good resources at your university that are also really helpful. But the other thing I want to say is, as you're trying to figure out what career path you want to do and just in general navigate your STEM journey, you kind of have to take ownership of that yourself. Like, no one is going to take your career more seriously than you. And you have to pick and choose the advice you take. So for me, I had a both positive and then a not so good experience with one of my advisors, where I was taking my calculus class and I was struggling, and my professor actually told me to drop the class. And I was like, well, I thought I could do it, but now my professor, who's like older than me, is telling me, hey, like, you should drop the class. Like, maybe he knows better. Maybe I should like take his advice. And I had to really think hard about, what do I want to do? Do I want to listen to my gut, and my gut, like, what did my gut say? My gut was saying, "You can do this. Like, yeah, you've struggled during the first midterm, but I think you can pass this class. You can just study harder, and maybe use different techniques to kind of get better at test taking." And that's what I did. So in that situation, I didn't listen to my advisor, and I was like, "You know what? I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm capable of. No one else knows that." And sometimes you just have to follow your strengths and what you know to be true about yourself. So definitely, that's how you go to like continue like creating your path, is like pick the advice that you want to take for yourself, and internships is something else that has been really helpful to me. I actually didn't know anything about the water industry until I did my internship in the water resource industry. So I didn't know how tap water comes to your house. I didn't even know that there's treatment that goes into it and how it gets transported. But I would highly recommend doing some internships, and I know everyone's like, "Oh, it's good for your resume," but I think it's in general, it's good to help you figure out and what you wanna do. I've had friends that have switched their internships, maybe every 3 months to kind of figure out what they want until they finally land in that field that they really wanna do. So that's one way of doing it, and then online research. I put that on here because, when I was looking into what STEM was and engineering was, when I was applying to colleges or trying to figure out what I wanted to do, there wasn't a lot of information out there. But today, I think there's a lot of people sharing their journey in STEM. So if you go to YouTube and you look up day in the life of a coder, day in the life of scientist, day in the life of a PhD student, anything that you're interested in, you should be able to find it. And those have been the most helpful to me because I want to know like what my career is going to look like on a day-to-day basis, right? So that would be my advice for finding resources in your, in this path of in your journey of STEM. And this is something, that I really wanted to kind of emphasize and highlight, and it's something really exciting. So like, yeah, like STEM is exciting, right? But like, what about all the other interests you have outside of STEM? And, you know, do you just kind of like push them to the side when you're studying, or like, wh- and that's something that I wanted to say, is that I would actually encourage you to explore your interests outside of school, academics. Um, I know a lot of even the mentors here are in college. Um, yeah, explore things outside of your STEM profession. I know that there's a lot of great engineering organizations out there, and that's great. But outside of that, you might have a sport that you've been doing since you were, in middle school, or you might like painting, or you might even pick up a new hobby. And the reason why I say this is because, you know, for me, the creation of Engineering Gals kind of happened because of the lack of representation that I found in my classroom, online as well. And that's something that I was like, okay, I want to change that, right? And for you, you might find yourself at a different, unique intersection between STEM and your interests. And you might be able to bring something else to the world that nobody's ever thought of before, something that you wish that you had and didn't have. So, and I know a lot of people might say that, hey, doing these things outside of school, it takes too much time, it's gonna distract me from my career. I would say that it actually does the opposite because it provides a lot of balance. You can take time off, from something that's so technical and maybe relieve your stress. It gives you a dynamic perspective because now you're having other experiences outside of just STEM that can kind of bring you a little bit more fulfillment. I know for me, everything that I do outside of engineering actually has made me a more stronger, confident, and self-assured person than I've ever been in my life. And so I highly recommend that. And the other thing I want to say is fulfillment. Not everyone is going to find 100% fulfillment through STEM, like in their life. They might want to do something more outside of that. And then that's where your kind of interests come in. So I that's something I highly recommend. And the other thing I want to touch on is community, right? So being a woman in STEM can be hard, it can be challenging. I know for me, like I was saying, I didn't see a lot of other girls in STEM in my classes. I don't know if that's still the case now. I don't know if that's the case in your classes in when you do get to STEM in college, but I definitely want to say that just being in STEM in general, it's really difficult. Like there's a lot of problems you're solving, there's a lot of critical thinking, and even you might be struggling in a class and or it's something to do with your personal life, and you want to have like your community, your friends, people that kind of understand your struggles to go through that with you and be there for you. I think that like if I didn't have friends who are on this path with me, I and encouraging me to be confident, encouraging me to, pursue my interests, who are leading by example. I don't know. I think it would have been hard for me because I would have felt, more alone. So I would encourage you to make friends with the people in your class, in your team, join STEM organizations like First Robotics is great, SWE is another one. And some of the online communities that I know of that are really engaging online. So if you can't do it in person, then you can also have some sort of, you know, communication and connection on social media too, which would be Engineering Gals I mentioned. Iron Ring Girls is also a great organization for women in engineering. STEM Media is a great community platform. And then CBS Unstoppable has a lot of great educational content about different types of careers in STEM. They highlight different women in the STEM industry, and it's a way to kind of get to know other different types of people and careers that you might have never even thought of before or known that existed. So, and that brings me to, my last slide, and I want everyone to kind of pick a STEM buddy. So you're going to be going into breakout rooms next, and I wanted to ask everyone, hey, like pick a STEM buddy in your breakout room, exchange your contact information, whether that's email or social media or LinkedIn, a way to contact each other so that you can kind of be there with each other throughout your journey in STEM. Maybe you can meet up with them later on at the first robotics competition in San Diego. That would be fun. And the other thing and the last thing that I want to say is, you're going to be competing with other girls in this competition. And I just wanted to say that take this opportunity to learn from them. I think the beautiful thing about being in the STEM industry is like, yeah, we're all solving very similar problems, but there's multiple ways to approach that problem. And when we can learn from each other, then amazing things can happen. So, yeah, thank you all for having me. I hope that this helped you in maybe navigating your path um, and hopefully through this, STEM buddy thing, you can also have somebody to kind of go through this journey with you.
Okay, Amy, thank you so very much. That was really wonderful.
Thanks.
We really appreciate your being here. We want to kind of keep going, but if anybody has any quick questions, anything specific they want to ask, either in the chat